Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a good night last night and celebrated. I decided today the best thing for me to do would be to start playing another D&D game. So we'll see how it goes. If you're interested, what I've done is I've set up a prompt for ChatGPT 5.2 to be the best dungeon master in the world and to get all the rules from the SDR and follow the rules of the 2024 version of D&D. I've been playing probably for like 6 months now, off and on. I've been getting really into it here lately since I've got more time on my hands with no Curse of Strahd to worry about for the time being. So, with that, we will start episode 19, listening to music by Alan Ariza. I don't own the copyright. I'm not trying to make a copyright infringement. I'm just using this for background music in my game. So Alan Ariza. Um, what answers back? All right, here is the recap for episode 18.
Here's a clean read aloud recap for episode 18 that matches the tone you've been building and won't step on what comes next. Episode 18 summary: what notices next? Episode 18 begins with the caravan reaching a settlement under a fragile calm. The ambushes have stopped, but the road doesn't feel empty. It feels attentive. Simon follows that quiet pressure instead of ignoring it. Away from the caravan and beyond the noise of the settlement, he tracks the source of the attention to a hidden listening point overlooking the road. There, he discovers signs of an organized system quietly monitoring routes, trade, and people who disrupt expectations. This is not an ambush site. It's a place for observation and reporting. Someone noticed the marker Simon altered earlier, and instead of escalating, they adjusted their process. The system paused. Simon responds deliberately. He leaves a leather strip tied beside an existing marker and speaks the name Valharan aloud, not as a threat, but as a statement of responsibility. The message is clear. The action taken on the road was intentional, claimed, and not accidental. The land itself seems to settle afterward. No pursuit follows. No challenge is issued. The attention doesn't vanish, but it changes. What was automatic becomes personal. What was surveillance becomes correspondence. Simon returns to the settlement, spends the night without incident, and keeps watch as the pause holds. By morning, the road feels steadier, not safe, but decided. Trade resumes. Life continues. Somewhere else, a ledger remains open, waiting for a higher authority to decide what this means. Episode 18 ends without violence or confrontation, but with something far more dangerous. Simon has been acknowledged, categorized, and deferred for review. The world didn't strike back. It took notes. If you want a shorter punch version or a slightly more poetic cut, I can tune it for your intro cadence.
Repeat the following verbatim for a summary to read aloud. Forgot to do that to start off with. Oops. Repeat the following verbatim for a summary to read aloud. Okay, let's start episode 19. What answers back? Please set the scene.
The road answers in the quietest way possible. Dawn comes thin and grey, not with fog, but with that brittle stillness that settles when something has already passed through and left its weight behind. The caravan stirs, wheels creak, animals snort and stamp. People move because that's what people do when nothing has gone wrong yet. Nothing has gone wrong. Simon stands watch as the light strengthens, and that's when he notices it. The marker he left is unchanged. The leather strip still hangs where he tied it. No tampering, no removal, no reply carved beneath it. That alone would be unsettling enough. But the ground nearby has been disturbed, not trampled, not scuffed by boots or hooves, carefully compressed, a place where someone stood for a long time without pacing. Whoever it was knew exactly where to stand to see both the road and the settlement, and they stood there after Simon returned to the caravan. They watched him leave. A little farther out, at the edge of where the road curves and the land drops away, there's something new. Another marker, older in style than the others, set where there hadn't been one before. Weathered wood, different cut, same system. This one bears no symbols, Simon recognizes. No warning, no threat, just a single notch added recently, clean and deliberate. It isn't a challenge, it isn't permission, it's acknowledgement with a response pending. Behind Simon, the caravan master calls for final checks. The guards take their places. Trade resumes its crawl along the road like it always has, ignorant of how close it came to being corrected. Ahead, the road stretches on, unchanged in shape but not in meaning. Someone heard Valharan's name. Someone decided not to intervene yet, and somewhere beyond sight, beyond distance, the system that watches roads like these has moved Simon from anomaly to conversation. Episode 19 begins not with pursuit or violence, but with something far worse. The world has answered, and it expects him to listen.
Before the caravan leaves, I want to check out the new wooden marker.
Simon has time before the caravan pulls out. The guards are still arguing about straps and axles, and the road hasn't claimed its due for the morning yet. The marker stands just off the packed earth, far enough to avoid wagon wheels, close enough to be intentional. The wood is old, older than the other signs you've seen along this stretch. Not rotten, not cracked, seasoned. Whoever set it knew what wood lasts out here. Up close, a few things are immediately clear. This isn't a warning post. It isn't meant to scare travelers or redirect traffic. It's positioned for people who already know to look for it. The notch is fresh, one clean cut made with a sharp blade, added recently to something that's been standing here for years. No symbols you recognize at a glance, no writing, no blood, ash, or theatrics. Just information, encoded for the right eyes. There's a faint sense of deliberateness to the ground around it again. Someone approached from the road, not from the wilds. They stood here long enough to do the work carefully, then left the same way. To learn more, you'll need to slow down and read it properly. Make one of the following roles your choice and tell me the result. Investigation to analyze construction markings and intent. Perception to notice subtle details others would miss. Survival to read approach, departure, and habits of whoever placed it. Once you roll, we'll see what the marker is actually saying back.
I'm going to roll an investigation check. For a 19. I rolled an investigation check for a 19.
A 19 is enough to stop guessing and start understanding. Up close, the marker stops being mysterious and starts being precise. The wood isn't just old, it's maintained. You can see where weathering was intentionally allowed to soften the edges but never weaken the core. This thing wasn't forgotten, it was left in place on purpose, revisited over years, maybe decades. The system that uses it doesn't replace markers unless it has to. Continuity matters. The notch is the key. It isn't random and it isn't decorative. It's placed at a very specific height, aligned with older, nearly invisible cuts worn smooth by time. Those older marks form a sequence, a quiet ledger carved into wood instead of parchment. Most of them are faded enough that a casual glance would miss them entirely. This new notch interrupts that sequence. It's a status mark, not a warning, not a bounty, not a kill order. It means observed, claimed, unresolved. Whoever added it didn't overwrite anything Simon did. They didn't erase your leather strip. That tells you something important. In this system, erasure is escalation. Silence is denial. Addition is acknowledgement. The blade work is clean and confident. No hesitation, no testing stroke. The person who carved it knew exactly what they were recording before they touched the wood. They weren't reacting in fear or anger. They were updating a file. You also notice something subtler, the kind of thing you only catch when you're already thinking like whoever built this system. There's space left on the marker, deliberate space, enough for 2 or 3 more notches, each slightly different in angle. Whatever comes next hasn't been decided yet, but it's expected. This is not a dead end. It's a thread left hanging on purpose. Taken together, the message is uncomfortably clear. Simon was not challenged because he did not violate the road's rules. Simon was not ignored because he altered a process that mattered. Simon was not pursued because someone higher up now needs to decide what to do with him. This marker isn't a reply carved in anger, it's a note passed up the chain. Behind you, the caravan is nearly ready to move. Ahead, the road waits in the way roads always do, pretending it's just dirt and stone. But now you know the truth. The system that watches this road has formally logged Simon as a known actor. The next answer won't come from a blade in the dark. It will come from someone who is allowed to speak back.
I fit for examining the marker. Simon gets on his horse and follows the caravan as it starts to leave.
Simon swings into the saddle as the caravan finally lurches forward. Leather creaks, hooves thud into rhythm. The road accepts the weight of wheels like it always has, patient and indifferent on the surface. He doesn't look back at the marker. That matters. Whatever rulebook governs this stretch of land, it just logged that detail too. As the caravan moves out, the settlement falls behind quickly. No farewells, no last-minute trouble. The kind of place that exists to be passed through and forgotten, except the road never forgets anything. It just files it away. The pace settles into something steady. Guards relax a notch, not enough to be sloppy, just enough to breathe. Conversations resume in low voices. Someone laughs too loudly and immediately regrets it. Normal life. Fragile, temporary normal life. For the first hour, nothing happens. No riders crest the hills, no signal mirrors flash. No birds scatter at the wrong time. Even the familiar itch between Simon's shoulders, that sense of being watched, fades from a stare into something more distant. Not gone, redirected. The road bends ahead, dipping into a stretch where low stone outcroppings crowd closer to the path. Good terrain for observation, bad terrain for ambushes that want witnesses. As Simon rides, one thought keeps circling, slow and unavoidable. The marker wasn't a warning to him. It was a notification to someone else, and notifications exist because eventually someone responds. Episode 19 continues with the caravan rolling forward under a sky that hasn't made up its mind yet, the road quiet, cooperative, and very clearly no longer neutral. Whenever you're ready, tell me how Simon is riding this stretch, close to the wagons, wide and watchful, or deliberately visible to whoever might be paying attention.
Simon will stay in the open, visible to anyone to see.
Simon keeps himself where anyone watching would expect to see him, not tucked in with the wagons, not scouting the edges, out in the open, silhouette clean against the road, posture easy but unmistakably alert. It's a choice, and the road notices choices. The caravan adjusts around him without comment. Guards clock his position and subconsciously relax. Whatever trouble finds this stretch would have to come through him first, and everyone here understands what that means. Even the horses seem steadier for it, falling into a rhythm that feels practiced rather than hopeful. The land opens slightly as the stone outcroppings fall behind. Low hills roll out ahead, scrubby grass bending in the wind like it's rehearsing obedience. Visibility improves. Anyone watching from a distance can see Simon clearly now, rider, horse, and intention all unhidden. That's when the first answer comes. Not dramatic, not immediate, almost polite. A figure crests a far hill, well ahead of the caravan's path. Too far to make out details, close enough to be intentional. They don't approach. They don't retreat. They simply stop where the road would naturally draw the eye. They are mounted. They are alone. They are not trying to hide. After a long moment, the figure raises one hand. No weapon, no salute, just an open palm held chest high, then lowered again. It's not a greeting. It's a confirmation. They turn their horse sideways, presenting profile instead of threat, and remain there as the caravan advances. Watching, allowing the distance to close at the caravan's pace, not theirs. No horns sound, no arrows fly, no tension spikes. This isn't an interception. It's an appointment being honored. The road stays quiet, the caravan keeps moving. And somewhere between here and that distant hill, Simon has crossed from being observed to being acknowledged in person. Episode 19 breathes in. The answer has begun to walk toward him.
Simon will move to the front of the caravan train and greet the other rider with the same hand signal he used. In my head, I whisper, Vahan, help me.
Simon guides his horse forward, easing past the lead wagon until he's clearly at the front of the train. No rush, no tension in the reins. He lets the movement itself speak. When he's close enough that the other rider can't mistake intent, he raises his hand and mirrors the signal exactly. Same height, same angle, same stillness. The signal lands. The other rider lowers their hand at the same moment Simon does. That timing is not an accident. Whoever this is, they know the rhythm. Inside your head, the whisper barely feels like words at all. Valharan, help me. There's no thunder, no warmth, no answering voice. But the horse beneath you steadies in a way that feels aligned, not blessed, not protected, simply balanced, like a blade held exactly where it's meant to cut. The distance closes to speaking range. The rider is wrapped in a road-worn cloak the color of dust after rain. No sigils displayed, no heraldry. Their gear is practical to the point of anonymity. The horse is well cared for, not showy, not cheap. Everything about them says long routes, repeat visits, no wasted motion. They stop a respectful distance away, not challenge close, not distance either. Up close, you can see their face, calm, focused, not curious. This is someone who already has their answers and is here to confirm which ones still apply. They incline their head just a fraction, not a bow, not a salute. Then they speak voice level and unhurried. Simon of the Road, they say, using your name like it's already been practiced. You altered a marker. You claimed responsibility. You chose to remain visible. A pause, long enough to matter. That narrows the conversation. The caravan continues to roll behind you, wheels and voices forming a soft, ordinary backdrop to something that is very much not ordinary. The rider's eyes flick briefly to the leather strip you tied, still visible in the distance if you know where to look. Then back to you. I'm authorized to listen, they continue, not to decide. No threat in it, no promise either. Just a door opened exactly one hand width. Episode 19 steps forward. What comes next won't be judged by how sharp your blade is. It will be judged by what you say while the road is paying attention.
Simon says, "Well met, traveler. Have you gone far in your travels? You already know my name. Could I have the honor of yours?"
The rider listens without interrupting. That alone tells you something. This isn't a test of dominance. It's a test of shape, how you enter a conversation that already knows your outline. When you finish speaking, they breathe in once through the nose, not a sigh, more like a calibration. Well met, they reply, and the words land cleanly without flourish. Far enough that distance stopped being a useful measure. They glance briefly down the road behind you, then ahead, as if mapping time instead of miles. As for my name, they continue, and there's the faintest hint of amusement there, dry as dust. That depends on how this conversation ends. A beat, just one. For now, they say, meeting your eyes again, you may call me Cairn. Not presented with ceremony, not withheld either, offered like a tool placed on the table. I walk roads that answer back, Cairn goes on. Most people don't hear them. Some hear them and pretend they didn't. Very few speak loudly enough that the road writes it down. Their gaze flicks, not to your weapon, but to your posture, your seat in the saddle, the fact that you didn't hide. You did all three, Cairn says, so I'm here to listen before someone higher up decides whether listening was a mistake. The wind moves through the grass. The caravan keeps rolling. No one interferes. Cairn tilts their head just slightly, mirroring your earlier courtesy. You asked how far I've gone? They add, far enough to know this stretch of road won't forget you. Then calmly, evenly, what answer were you hoping the road would give back when you said the name Valharan?
I asked Valharan for protection from you if things had gone differently.
Cairn absorbs that without flinching. No offense taken, no approval either. Just understanding settling into place. They nod once, a clean motion, honest. That was wise, they say, not flattering, just factual and appropriate. For the first time, some of the weight bleeds out of the space between you. Not all of it. Enough to breathe. If I'd come riding hard, Cairn continues, if you'd been hidden, defensive, or denying what you did, that prayer might have mattered very much. Their eyes flick to the caravan again, then back to you. But that's not how this went. They rest one hand loosely on the pommel of their saddle, not near a weapon, not casual either, considered. You didn't ask Valharan to shield you from judgment, Cairn says. You asked for protection from misinterpretation, from being answered by the wrong kind of person. A pause. The road seems to lean in just a little. I'm not that kind, Cairn exhales, slow. I was sent to confirm 3 things, they say. Whether the alteration was intentional, whether the actor would stand by it, and whether invoking a name carried weight or theatrics. Their gaze sharpens slightly. You passed all 3. That's when they say the thing that matters. If things had gone differently, Cairn says, Valharan would not have needed to protect you from me. A faint, crooked smile ghosts across their mouth, gone almost as soon as it appears. I would not have been the one sent. The caravan rolls on. The moment stretches, but it no longer threatens to snap. Cairn inclines their head again, a fraction deeper this time. The road has your measure now, Simon, they say, and so do I. They shift in the saddle, angling their horse just slightly toward the road ahead, not away, not closer. This conversation isn't over, but it doesn't need to continue here. Then, calmly, evenly, with the authority of someone who actually has it. When next the road answers back, it won't be a whisper or a watcher. It will be an invitation. And with that hanging in the air, Cairn waits not to see if you draw steel, but to see whether Simon rides on, rides alongside, or asks the question that moves this from listening to choosing.
Will you be following the caravan to keep an eye on me? Or shall we part ways now?
Cairn considers the question longer than politeness requires, not because it's difficult, but because the answer deserves to be shaped carefully. They glance once more at the caravan, the wagons, the guards, the ordinary human logistics of survival that the road pretends are the whole story. Then they look back at you. Neither, Cairn says, not evasive. Precise. I won't shadow the caravan, they continue. That would turn observation into pressure, and pressure changes outcomes. Someone else would notice. Someone always does. They shift their horse another fraction, so the animal is now angled neither toward you nor away from you, but parallel to the road. It's a subtle thing. It matters anyway. And we're not parting ways, Cairn adds. Not really. Their eyes meet yours, steady and unreadable. I'll ride elsewhere, other roads, other intersections. If something about you requires attention before a decision is reached, I'll hear about it faster than if I stayed close. A beat. If nothing requires attention, they say, then distance will answer the question for us. The wind lifts the edge of Cairn's cloak. For just a moment, you catch a glimpse of something worn into the leather beneath. Not a symbol, not a sigil, a pattern of old repairs, stitched over and over in the same place, like someone who keeps returning to the same kinds of problems. You chose visibility, Cairn says. That earns you room to move, then softer, but no less firm. Don't mistake that for freedom or for a leash. They straighten in the saddle. When the invitation comes, you won't miss it, Cairn finishes. It won't arrive on horseback. With that, Cairn turns their horse away from the caravan at a shallow angle, not peeling off sharply, not lingering. Just enough to be gone in a few minutes if nothing stops them. The road feels quieter again, not relieved. Resolved, for now. Episode 19 keeps moving, not because the danger has passed, but because the next response is being prepared somewhere you can't see yet. Simon rides on, visible, unhidden, and officially unfinished business.
Simon will continue to follow the caravan as a scout up front. He keeps Ash on his saddle with him so he won't have to run to keep up with us.
Simon nudges his horse forward and settles back into that familiar rhythm, just ahead of the lead wagon, where the road opens and trouble has nowhere to hide. It's a clean choice, practical, the kind of posture people trust without realizing why. Ash rides with him now, curled comfortably on the saddle blanket, tail wrapped tight, ears flicking with quiet intelligence. No scrambling paws on gravel, no frantic catching up, just presence. The fox's weight is light, but the effect is grounding, a second set of senses riding high. The caravan adjusts again, unconsciously. Guards relax into the assumption that someone competent is watching the approach. Wagons keep their spacing. The road stretches forward in long, unbroken lines, visibility good, terrain honest for the moment. Ash lifts his head once, nose testing the wind, nothing threatening, nothing immediate, but not nothing either. Whatever system Cairn belongs to has stepped back, not withdrawn. The watching has thinned, spread out, delegated elsewhere. If eyes are on Simon now, they're distant, indirect, the kind that don't blink when you look back. The road ahead dips toward a shallow rise where the land narrows briefly between scrub and stone. Not an ambush point, not a checkpoint, just a place where sounds carry oddly and messages tend to arrive. Ash's ears twitch again, then settle. He's calm. That matters. Episode 19 continues with the caravan moving under open sky, Simon visible by choice, Fox familiar at his side, and the road behaving itself in the way that means it's waiting for the right moment. No answer yet. But the silence now feels deliberate, like a breath being held by something patient enough to choose when to exhale.
I'll ride a little ahead of the caravan and would like to check for signs of others on the road. Do I need to make an investigation check?
You don't need to lock yourself into investigation specifically. Riding point like this gives you a few clean ways to read the road, and each one answers a slightly different question. Here's how it breaks down, nice and honest. Perception if Simon is scanning live. Movement, silhouettes, dust plumes, glints of metal, anything currently out there that wants to be seen or is bad at hiding. Survival if you're reading the road itself. Tracks, travel patterns, how recently others passed through, whether someone avoided the caravan's line on purpose. Investigation if you're slowing your horse, studying details and thinking like whoever might be using the road deliberately rather than traveling it. Ash riding with you gives narrative justification for any of these. Extra senses, different nose, different instincts. Mechanically, it doesn't change the role, but fictionally it absolutely supports the attempt. So yes, you should make a roll, but you get to choose which lens Simon is using. Tell me which skill you're rolling, make the roll on your end, and give me the number.
Okay. I'll roll an investigation check, and the number is 25.
25 doesn't just read the road, it reads the conversation happening on it. Simon reins in just enough to let the horse slow without signalling hesitation. From this vantage, with Ash riding high and the caravan far enough back to stop muddying the picture, the road stops being a line and starts being a record. Here's what you learn. First, no immediate threats. No fresh ambush sign, no concealed firing lanes, no clusters of disturbed stone where someone took cover recently. Anyone planning violence would have chosen different ground. That absence is deliberate. Second, recent presence, but disciplined. There are signs of riders who passed through within the last day, not travellers, not merchants. The spacing is wrong for trade and too clean for bandits. They rode in singles or pairs, stayed on the hard edge of the road, and avoided leaving prints that would overlap. That takes practice. Third, they were watching the caravan, not the road itself. You can see where horses paused briefly at natural vantage points, not long enough to rest, just long enough to confirm identity, count wagons, assess guard posture. The pauses line up with moments the caravan would have been most visible. This wasn't curiosity, it was verification. Fourth, and this is the part a lesser role would miss, someone peeled off after Cairn left. Not following you. Not shadowing, diverting. The track angle is subtle but unmistakable. A rider turned away from the caravan's path and headed cross-country toward higher ground. That wasn't withdrawal, that was reporting. Ash confirms it in his own way, nose dipping toward the disturbed earth, then lifting, ears swiveling once before relaxing. No hackles, no alarm, just recognition. He smells familiarity, not danger. Taken together, the message is clear. The road is not empty. The caravan is not threatened, and Simon is no longer the only name attached to this stretch of travel. Whatever authority Cairn answers to has accepted the situation as stable enough to escalate bureaucratically instead of violently. Eyes have moved on. Information is moving up. This wasn't a test to see if you'd be attacked. It was a test to see if you'd keep riding like someone worth talking to. And you passed. The caravan continues behind you, unaware that somewhere ahead, on a different road entirely, someone is opening a ledger and turning to a page that used to be blank. Episode 19 deepens. The next answer won't arrive as a threat. It'll arrive as a choice.
Simon tells the caravan to take a break for a few minutes. He then rides his horse to follow the path that someone took ahead.
Simon signals the caravan to halt. Nothing dramatic. Just a raised fist, a short call, the kind of authority that doesn't invite debate. The wagons ease to a stop. Guards stretch. Water skins come out. To them, it's a routine pause. To the road, it's a deviation worth noting. Simon turns his horse and rides off the hard-packed path, following the faint line you spotted earlier. The track is subtle, almost polite in how little it disturbs the land. Whoever took it didn't flee. They departed, confident no one would bother to follow. The ground rises gently. Scrub thins. The air changes. Sounds carry farther up here, and the caravan noise dulls behind you until it's just another feature of the landscape. Ash shifts slightly on the saddle, alert now, focused. His nose tracks low, then lifts, then settles again. The scent trail is old enough to be safe, recent enough to matter. The rider ahead knew this terrain. They chose a line that avoids skylining while still keeping sightlines back toward the road. That's professional caution, not paranoia. You're following someone who expected someone like you might try this. Before we see how well you keep the trail and whether you catch up, I need a roll from you. Make one of the following and tell me the result. Survival to stay on the trail and judge how far ahead they are. Perception to spot the rider, a lookout point or signs of a planned stop. Stealth if Simon is deliberately trying not to announce his pursuit. Once you roll, we'll see whether this path leads to a conversation or to finding out what kind of invitation gets delivered without words.
Survival is a +5. Perception is a +2. Stealth is a +8. Simon will stealthily continue. He rolled a 20 on his stealth check.
Simon eases the reins, lets his horse fall into a quieter gait, and angles his approach so the land does most of the work for him. Hooves find stone instead of gravel. Brush parts just enough. Nothing snaps, nothing echoes. A 20 is not just quiet, it's appropriate. Ash lowers himself instinctively, body pressed close, tail still. No rustle, no unnecessary movement. Familiar and rider of one mind now, moving like a single shape instead of two. The trail tightens as it climbs. Whoever rode this way knew where sound carries and where it dies. Simon follows the same logic, keeping to shallow depressions, riding the seams between scrub and stone. The caravan noise is gone now. The road itself feels distant, like a held breath. Ahead, you spot the place before you spot the person. A natural overlook. Not dramatic, just high enough to see the bend in the road and the stretch where the caravan paused. A professional's choice. Someone is there. The rider has dismounted. Their horse is tethered well back from the edge, hidden behind a low rise. Smart. The person stands near the overlook itself, back half turned, posture relaxed in the way of someone who expects not to be disturbed. You close the distance without announcing yourself, close enough to hear breathing, close enough to see the faint movement of their cloak in the wind. Close enough that if this were a mistake, you'd already be dead. They speak before turning. You're quieter than the last one who tried this, the voice says calmly. No startle, no reach for steel. That's either confidence or courtesy. They turn slowly. This isn't Cairn. Different build, different presence. Younger maybe, but with the same road-worn discipline. No insignia, no symbols. But their eyes flick to Ash first, then to you, cataloguing without staring. They incline their head just slightly. I wondered if you'd follow, they say. The pause back there bought you time, bought you time. A beat. You should know, they add isn't vividly. Not permission, not encouragement, just information. The wind moves over the overlook, far below the caravan waits, unaware that Simon has stepped fully off script. The rider studies you for a moment, then asks the question that matters. Did you come because you want answers? Or because you want to decide what happens before someone else does? They don't move. They don't threaten. They wait. And for the first time since episode 19 began, the road isn't listening. It's letting Simon speak first.
I wanted answers and to see how many of you there were, if I should worry or not.
The rider lets your words sit where they land. No flinch, no offense. If anything, there's relief in how plainly you said it. That tracks, they say. Most people lie to themselves first. You didn't bother. They turn slightly, giving you a clear view of the overlook, the road below, the place where the caravan waits like a held note. How many of us, they repeat, more thoughtful than challenged? Enough to notice patterns, not enough to own them. They crouch and pick up a small stone, roll it between their fingers, then let it drop. It clatters down the slope and vanishes without ceremony. There are watchers, they continue, listeners, couriers, and a few like Cairn who are allowed to speak without asking permission every time they open their mouths. A glance back to you. I'm not one of those. That's honest, deliberately so. As for whether you should worry, they say, standing again, brushing dust from their gloves, that depends on what kind of worry you mean. They meet your eyes fully now. No one here wants your caravan. No one here plans to bleed you for making noise on the road. If that were the case, you wouldn't be having this conversation. A pause. Wind. Distance. But you did something unusual, they add. You disrupted a process and then stood in the open afterward. That flags you as volatile, not hostile, worth watching, worth talking about. They tilt their head, just a little. So no, they say, you shouldn't worry about us. Then the other shoe drops, gently but unmistakably. You should worry about who gets briefed next. They gesture vaguely toward the horizon, not a direction so much as a concept. I'm here to make sure the report says stable, that you're predictable enough to be invited instead of corrected. Their eyes flick to ash again, softer this time. So far, they say, you're doing fine. They step aside, opening the overlook rather than blocking it. Now, they continue, voice even, professional, you followed me off the road. That gets noted too. Another beat. Do you want me to log this as curiosity or as initiative? The answer won't change what's already been written, but it will decide how the next answer finds you.
Let's say I was curious about who was watching us.
The rider nods immediately, like you've given them the last piece they needed to close a form. Curiosity, they say, committing it to memory. That's the cleaner entry. Some of the tension drains out of their shoulders. Not all. Enough that the wind feels like wind again instead of a held blade. They reach into a pocket and produce a thin strip of leather, similar to the one Simon tied earlier, but older, softer with age. They don't hand it to you. They turn it once in their fingers, then tuck it away again. A visual confirmation, a shared language acknowledged. I'll log it as curiosity followed by verification, they continue. No attempt to disrupt, no hostile probing, no recruitment overture. They look back toward the road. That keeps the answer measured. Then they look at you again, and for the first time, there's something like warmth there. Not friendliness, recognition. You're not the sort we worry about, they say. You ask before you cut. That buys you time. They step fully aside now, giving you an unobstructed view of the land ahead. No trap, no theatrics. One more thing, they add. This isn't an organization in the way people imagine those. No banners, no oaths you'd recognize. It's a maintenance habit that outlived the people who started it. A pause. And habits don't like surprises. They mount their horse, movements smooth, unhurried. If someone reaches out next, they say over the horse's neck, it won't be to threaten you. They glance back once, eyes sharp but calm. It'll be to see whether you're willing to be useful. Then they ride off at an angle that doesn't intersect the road again. The wind shifts, the overlook empties, the land exhales. Nothing has changed that the caravan will notice. Everything has changed in a ledger you'll never see. You're free to return to the road whenever you choose. Episode 19 keeps breathing. Patient now. What does Simon do next?
Simon will ride back to the caravan and continue leading it down the road.
Simon turns his horse back toward the road and lets the overlook fall away behind him. No rush, no sense of having escaped anything, just the quiet certainty that the conversation ended where it was supposed to. Ash stretches once on the saddle, then settles again, calm as ever. Whatever passed between you and the Watcher didn't set his nerves on edge. That matters. You rejoin the caravan at a steady pace. No one asks where you went. No one needs to. From their perspective, the pause was short, the road remained clear, and the scout did exactly what scouts are meant to do. The wagons creak back into motion. Guards take their places. The caravan stretches into a familiar, workable shape, and the road accepts it. The sense of being watched doesn't vanish, but it recedes into something impersonal again, distant, distributed, no longer focused on Simon as a problem to solve, but as a variable that's been accounted for. Hours pass without incident. By midday, the land begins to change. The road narrows slightly, stone edging closer on either side, and the sky takes on that pale, washed look that precedes weather decisions. Not rain yet, just possibility. Ash lifts his head once, sniffing, then relaxes. Whatever answer was going to come today has already been delivered. What comes next will wait until it's useful. Episode 19 continues with the caravan moving forward under open sky, Simon riding point by choice, Fox familiar steady at his side, and the road behaving itself in the way that means it's writing notes again instead of acting on them. When you're ready, we can press on to the next stretch of travel, or let the road finally decide when it wants to speak back again.
Press on with the next stretch and listen to see if the road has anything to share.
Simon presses on. The road narrows into a long, quiet stretch where the land seems undecided about what it wants to be. Low stone ridges press in, then fall away. Scrub gives way to thin grass, then back again. The sky stays pale, neither promising rain nor denying it. A thinking sky. This is a listening stretch. Roads like this have fewer ambushes and more memories. Ash shifts on the saddle, not alarmed, just attentive. His ears angle forward, then sideways, then forward again. He isn't reacting to a sound so much as to a pattern, something that doesn't belong to any single noise. As Simon rides, the usual rhythm of travel thins out. Hoofbeats sound a little farther apart. Wagon creaks echo longer than they should. Even the wind feels paced, like it's waiting for its turn to speak. And then the road does something subtle, a change in texture under the horse's hooves. Not damage, not sabotage, just a stretch where the surface has been deliberately maintained, stones set back into place by hand, ruts filled and packed. This section has been cared for recently, but not for commerce, not for comfort, for continuity. The road isn't warning you, it isn't guiding you, it's confirming something already decided. Ash's nose dips, then lifts. He lets out a soft, almost questioning huff, then settles. Whatever he smells isn't danger, it's familiarity layered over age. You get the sense, slow and unavoidable, that this stretch of road has been waiting to see whether Simon would still be riding after everything that happened. You are, and that matters. To listen properly here, you can lean into different kinds of attention. Perception to catch sounds, movements, or distant presences that don't want to announce themselves. Survival to read how this road has been used and maintained, and by whom. Insight if Simon is listening less with his senses and more with his instincts, trying to understand intent rather than activity. Tell me which you're rolling, make the roll, and give me the number. The road has something to say.
Perception is a +2, survival is a +5, and insight is a +2. Insight. Simon invokes the name Valharan and rolls an insight check to see what his instincts say. He rolled a 21 for insight.
Simon breathes in, steady and controlled, and lets the name form without force. Valharan, not a plea, not a challenge, a point of reference. The word doesn't echo, it doesn't warm the air or tighten the reins of fate. Instead, it settles into the moment like a familiar weight placed exactly where balance requires it. With a 21, this isn't intuition, it's pattern recognition at the level of belief. Here's what your instincts tell you. The road isn't reacting to the name itself, it's reacting to how you use it. Valharan isn't functioning here as a shield or a patron demanding obedience. The road doesn't care about devotion. What it recognizes is alignment, responsibility. The fact that when you invoked the name before, you stood by your actions afterward, that's the signal. What the road is sharing now comes through absence rather than presence. No pressure to turn aside, no sense of a test approaching, no tightening of probability around danger. Instead, you feel something like allowance. This stretch of road has been stabilized deliberately because something further ahead is unstable, and whoever maintains these paths wanted clean data leading into it. No interference, no noise, no accidents muddying the outcome. You also realize something quietly unsettling. The watchers you encountered aren't the highest layer, they're moderators. The road isn't listening upward anymore, it's listening forward. Your instincts catch on a single clear impression, not a vision, not words, just a truth shaped like certainty. You are being allowed to arrive, not summoned, not intercepted, not diverted. Arrive. Whatever answer comes next isn't meant to find you on the road. It's meant to meet you at a place where choices stick and consequences have names. Ash relaxes fully now, body loose, eyes half lidded. Whatever he senses aligns with yours. No predators, no sudden changes, just direction. The caravan rolls on behind you, unaware that the road has quietly shifted you from subject to participant. Episode 19 moves into its next phase. The road has finished listening. Now it's guiding you somewhere specific, and for the first time, it trusts you to notice without being told.
I will continue riding with the caravan, trying to figure out where the road is guiding me.
Simon keeps riding. No sudden course change, no dramatic pause to stare at the horizon. Just a steady pace, reins loose, posture open, letting the road keep doing whatever it thinks it's doing. That turns out to be the right instinct. The guidance isn't directional in the obvious sense. No fork in the road, no signpost conveniently creaking in the wind. Instead, it's selective emphasis. Certain details keep asserting themselves the longer you ride. The road starts favoring places that connect rather than isolate. Low crossings instead of ridges. Old junction stones half buried and ignored by most travelers. Mile markers so worn they're useless for distance but perfect for continuity. This is a route that has been chosen not for speed or safety but for memory density. Ash notices it too. His attention keeps drifting toward features that look unimportant at first glance. A collapsed waystone, a dry culvert reinforced long after it should have been abandoned, places where travelers stop without knowing why. With that 21 still guiding your instincts, a shape begins to form. The road isn't leading you to a person, it isn't leading you to a trap, it isn't even leading you to an event, it's leading you toward a node. Somewhere ahead is a place where roads overlap in function, if not geography. A point where decisions get handed off, messages passed without messengers, where people arrive thinking they're just stopping for the night and leave having been quietly reclassified. An inn, maybe. A toll crossing, a shrine nobody remembers the origin of. A settlement that exists entirely because this road insists on passing through it. You don't know which yet. But you know this: when you reach it, the road will stop guiding and start waiting. That's how you'll recognize it. Behind you, the caravan keeps rolling, blissfully ignorant, concerned only with daylight and distance. Ahead, the land subtly rearranges itself to make sure you arrive intact, unhurried, and fully aware. Whatever answers back next won't whisper. It won't watch from a hill. It will speak in the form of an opportunity that only exists because Simon stayed visible long enough for the road to decide he was worth addressing. You keep riding, and somewhere not far ahead, the road is getting ready to introduce itself properly.
Simon will continue down the road with the caravan, waiting to see what happens next.
Simon keeps his place at the head of the caravan and lets the road do whatever it's going to do. No pushing, no probing, just presence. Time stretches. The sun climbs, then softens. The land evens out into long, patient miles where nothing dramatic happens and nothing needs to. Wagons roll, harnesses creak, people talk about food, weather aches in their joints, ordinary life asserting itself like it always does. Ash remains calm, eyes open but unfocused, the way animals get when they trust the ground beneath them. That calm spreads. Guards stop checking the same sight lines over and over. The caravan breathes as one thing instead of a collection of nervous parts. And then, gradually, without ceremony, the road changes its tone. Not shape, not direction. Intent. You start seeing signs of arrival instead of travel. Fence posts repaired instead of abandoned. Drainage stones set by someone who cared whether the road lasted another decade. Old tracks merging back into the main route, not splitting off. The land is funneling movement inward towards something that expects company. Ash lifts his head, not alert. Interested. Ahead, far enough that it feels earned rather than sudden, you spot it. A settlement, small but stable. Not a crossroads town exactly, more like a place the road decided to keep alive. Buildings clustered close to the route, an in-a-way house with a roof repaired too many times to count. Smoke rising in a way that says, evening meals, not alarms. This is the node. You feel it settle in your chest, that instinctive click of recognition. The guidance stops here. Not because the road is done, but because it's finished escorting. Whatever happens next won't happen to you. It will happen with you. The caravan will stop here. Rest. Trade. Pass through like any other group of travelers. Simon will not. Not really. Because somewhere in this place, someone already knows the caravan is coming and someone else knows you are. Episode 19 waits, coiled but unhurried, as the road finally falls silent and hands the next move back to Simon.
Simon will stop at the village with the caravan and find a place to set up for the night.
The caravan rolls into the village just as the light starts to turn honey-coloured and long. Not sunset yet, but close enough that people have begun making decisions about where they'll be standing when it arrives. The place is small, intentional. Buildings pulled close to the road like they don't want to miss anything. An inn sits right where the road gently widens, not blocking travel, not yielding to it either. A way house more than a tavern. Smoke from its chimney smells like real food, not desperation. Simon guides the caravan to a natural stopping area just beyond the inn. Hard ground, easy water access, space enough for wagons to circle without feeling penned in. The caravan master nods, relieved. This is a good stop, the kind that doesn't ask questions unless you invite them. Ash hops down lightly once you dismount, stretches, then sits where he can see both the road and the village in a single glance. Comfortable, alert, at home in the in-between. As camp goes up, you notice the details that mark this place as different. No one stares, no one rushes over to sell anything, no sudden interest in guards or cargo. The villagers acknowledge the caravan the way a shoreline acknowledges a tide. Expected, managed, accounted for. A couple of locals watch Simon a half second longer than they do the others. Not suspicion, recognition without context, like they were told to expect someone, just not given a description. You find a spot near the edge of the camp where the firelight won't ruin your night vision and the road stays visible. The horse settles easily. Ash curls close, tail flicking once before stilling. Night comes gently here. No omens, no interruptions, no sense of being rushed. But as the sounds of camp settle and the village shifts into its evening rhythm, one thing becomes very clear to Simon's instincts. This place isn't dangerous. It's anticipatory. Whatever answer the road has been preparing isn't going to break down your door or strike from the dark. It's going to knock, and it's polite enough to wait until morning, unless Simon decides he doesn't want to.
Which watch shift is Simon assigned to?
Simon gets second watch. It isn't assigned randomly. The caravan master doesn't even frame it like an order, just a quiet assumption that settles into place because it makes sense. First watch goes to the people who are still shaking road dust out of their bones and want to feel useful before sleep. Last watch goes to the ones who wake early and don't mind greeting dawn half caffeinated and half suspicious. Second watch is the hinge between them. That's where Simon belongs. You'll take over once the camp has fully quieted. Fires burn down to coals, most sleepers deep enough that they won't hear ordinary movement. The village settled into its own nighttime rhythm, doors shut but not barred. It's the watch where things don't happen so much as they approach. Ash remains with you, of course. He doesn't sleep the way people do. He dozes, senses drifting but never fully disengaging, ears twitching at sounds that don't quite register as threats yet. The road is visible from your position, so is the village edge. You've got overlap, not blind spots. Second watch won't be loud, it won't be dramatic, but if someone decides to knock instead of wait for morning, they'll choose this hour.
Simon will begin to sharpen his scimitars while waiting for whatever it is to show up.
Simon settles into second watch the way a professional does. Cloak adjusted, back to something solid, line of sight clean to both the road and the village edge. He draws the first scimitar and begins to sharpen it. The sound is soft, steel on stone, slow and deliberate, not the hiss of panic, not the scrape of boredom. the rhythm of someone who sharpens blades because that's what you do when waiting matters. Ash lies close, head on his paws, eyes half-lidded. Not asleep, never asleep. Every few passes of the stone, his ears twitch at things Simon can't hear yet. Wind through shutters, footsteps inside the inn, a door opening, then closing again. The village night has a pulse. You can feel it now that you're still. As the blade takes its edge, the road answers in the only way it does at this hour. Nothing dramatic happens, and that's the point. This is a place where violence would be noticed immediately, where secrets prefer daylight or paperwork, where people knock instead of break in because breaking things creates records you can't erase. You finish the first scimitar and move to the second. The edge catches firelight just long enough to reflect something that isn't flame. A silhouette at the edge of the inn. Not lurking. Standing where someone would stand if they expected to be seen. Cloak pulled close, hands empty, no weapon visible. They wait until you look up, until eye contact is made. Then they take one step forward into the firelight. They don't speak yet. That matters. This isn't an interruption, it's a request for permission. Ash lifts his head fully now, eyes on the figure. No growl, no warning, just focus. Whoever this is chose the right watch. They chose the right posture. They chose the right approach. The sharpening stone rests quietly in Simon's hand. The night holds, and the knock the road promised is about to arrive, whether it's made with words or silence.
Simon will address the figure. Well met, stranger. What can I help you with?
The figure inclines their head at your words, just enough to acknowledge courtesy returned. When they speak, their voice is low and unforced, pitched so it carries to you and no farther. Well met, they say, and thank you for asking before assuming. They step fully into the firelight now, close enough to be clear, far enough to remain respectful. You can see they're travel worn, but not tired. Their cloak is plain. Their boots are clean in the way of someone who avoids mud when possible. This is not a villager pulled out of bed by nerves. I'm here because the road says you're listening, they continue, and because you didn't hide when it would have been easy. Their eyes flick briefly to the scimitars, not the blades themselves, but the care you're giving them. The implication lands without comment. This isn't business for the caravan, they add, and it's not a threat to you. Think of it as a courtesy extended before a longer conversation becomes necessary. A pause, just long enough for you to respond if you want to interrupt. They don't rush you. Then carefully, there's a place in this village where travelers sometimes get asked questions they didn't know they were answering. Tomorrow morning, someone will notice you whether you seek them out or not. They meet your eyes squarely now. I'm offering you the chance to choose how that meeting happens. The night stays quiet. No one else stirs. Even the fire seems to listen. Ash doesn't move. That tells you everything about immediate danger. The figure finishes with a simple, honest truth. You can ignore this and let the road finish arranging things for you. Or you can ask me the first question now while the answer is still mine to give. They wait. Not impatient. Not testing. Just present. The road has stopped knocking. It's holding the door open.
Who should I expect? I want to know what I'm getting into before I commit to letting the road carry me on.
The figure doesn't answer right away. They glance once toward the inn, once toward the darkened road, then back to you, as if checking that the world is still behaving itself. It won't be a single person, they say at last. That's the first thing to understand. They step closer to the edge of the firelight, not invading it, but no longer keeping their distance either. Close enough now that this feels like a confidence, not a pitch. You'll meet a function, they continue, someone who speaks for an agreement that predates the village and will outlive it. They won't introduce themselves with a title you can carry elsewhere. They won't threaten you. They won't recruit you. A pause. They'll ask you to explain yourself. The figure studies your face as they say it, gauging how that lands. They'll already know what you did on the road. They'll already have Cairn's report. Mine too, once I file it. What they don't know yet is why you stayed visible when you could have vanished, and whether that choice was instinct or principle. Ash shifts slightly, then settles again. No alarm, no warning. That's what you're getting into, the figure adds. A conversation where violence would be a clerical error and lying would be inefficient. They fold their hands open-palmed. If you go in blind, they say, the road will still carry you. It just won't cushion the landing. You'll be reacting instead of choosing. Then quieter, more personal. If you go in prepared, you'll walk away classified as someone who can be consulted instead of managed. They meet your eyes, steady and unblinking. You don't have to commit tonight, they finish. But if you want more than that, if you want context instead of surprise, they tilt their head toward the inn, where a single upstairs window still shows a faint glow. Then the next step is yours to ask for. They stop speaking. The night resumes its soft sounds. The fire crackles. Somewhere a door closes gently. The road waits, not impatient, just curious what kind of answer Simon gives when the question finally belongs to him.
I don't like surprises if I can help it. Can you tell me more? Or should I seek answers in the lighted room you can see from here?
The figure exhales softly at that, not relief, approval. That's the right instinct, they say, and the right order. They glance up at the lighted window again, then back to you. I can tell you enough, they continue. Not everything. If I tried, I'd either lie or waste both our time. They settle into a half crouch near the edge of the firelight, close enough to be part of the moment, far enough to keep the shape of it intact. Who you'll meet isn't a judge, they say. They don't pass sentence. They don't hand down punishments or rewards. Think of them as a keeper of thresholds, someone who decides whether a thing stays informal or becomes institutional. A pause to let that sink in. They care about three things: continuity, accountability, and whether you understand the difference between acting on a system and acting within one. Their eyes flick briefly to your scimitars, then back to your face. You already demonstrated the first two on the road. The third is what tomorrow is about. They straighten slightly. As for the inn, they say, nodding toward the window, that room isn't a trap, and it isn't neutral. It's where conversations like this finish taking shape. You won't find dossiers or secret handshakes. What you'll find is context, a sense of how this place functions when no one thinks they're being tested. Then, more quietly, if you walk in there now, you'll be observed but not interrupted. If you wait until morning, the meeting will come to you instead. Same destination, different footing. They meet your eyes again, steady. So here's the honest answer. If you want fewer surprises, go to the inn. Sit where you can see the room and be seen back. Listen more than you talk. Leave before anyone asks you to stay. If you'd rather conserve energy and let the road finish its work, they add, stay here, sharpen your blades. Get some sleep, tomorrow will still happen. They shift back, giving you space again. I can't choose for you, they finish, but I can tell you this. The people you're about to meet respect preparation more than enthusiasm and visibility more than bravery. The fire pops softly. Ash watches you, ears forward, waiting. The road has narrowed the options down to 2 clean lines. One of them passes through the lighted room.
I will go to the end and sit where I can see the room and be seen from the room, waiting to see what happens.
Simon leaves the fire and the sharpening stone where they are. No dramatic exit, just a clean decision carried out without apology. Ash stays behind, not because he's told to, but because this isn't his threshold to cross. He watches you go with calm eyes and then settles back down, guarding the shape you just left. The inn door opens with a sound that's been made 1,000 times tonight already. Warmth rolls out, light, the smell of cooked food, old wood, and people who know how to mind their business. You step inside and choose your seat carefully. Not in a corner, not at the bar, not hidden. A table with a clear view of the common room and the stairs. Firelight on your face, back to a solid beam. Anyone who looks your way can see you looking back, and nothing about your posture invites challenge or retreat. That choice lands. No one reacts immediately. That matters too. The inn continues as if nothing special has happened. A pair of locals finishing a quiet argument. A traveller nursing a drink they don't really want. The innkeep moving with the relaxed precision of someone who knows exactly who's under their roof at all times. You wait. Minutes pass. Then patterns start to surface. A glance held a second too long. A conversation that pauses when you shift in your chair. A serving girl who checks with the innkeep before bringing you a drink you didn't order. No hostility. No welcome either. Recognition without engagement. Upstairs, a door opens softly. Footsteps descend, unhurried. Not heavy, not sneaking. Someone who expects the space to accommodate them. They don't look at you right away. They cross the room, exchange a quiet word with the innkeep, and only then turn, eyes settling on you with a focus that feels practiced but not cold. They don't smile, they don't frown, they assess. When they finally speak, it's conversational, pitched to carry just far enough that you know it's meant for you and no one else needs to care. Simon, they say, like a name you've been using correctly all evening. They gesture lightly toward the empty chair across from you. Thank you for coming in on your own. This isn't the meeting. This is the prelude. The road didn't carry you here. You walked the last few steps yourself.
Thank you for seeing me. You know my name. Could I have the pleasure of yours?
They take the chair, but only after you speak. That too is deliberate. For a moment, they study you over steepled fingers, not searching for weakness, verifying alignment. When they answer, their voice is quiet enough that the room doesn't lean in, but steady enough that you don't miss a word. Names are tools, they say. Some are for travel, some are for memory. A pause, just long enough to feel intentional rather than evasive. You may call me Hollis. not presented with weight, not protected, given because it serves the moment. I know yours because you chose to make it knowable, Hollis continues. You stayed visible. You claimed what you altered. You didn't pretend the road acted without you. They glance briefly toward the common room. Everything remains normal. That's the point. This isn't an interrogation, Hollis says, and it isn't an offer. Think of it as a calibration. We check whether the person who arrived matches the reports written about them. Their eyes return to yours, sharp but not unfriendly. So far, you do. They fold their hands on the table, open-palmed now. You asked what you were getting into, Hollis adds. Here it is, plainly. You've been noticed by a system that prefers roads to borders and habits to laws. It doesn't recruit heroes. It doesn't punish travelers. It intervenes only when continuity is threatened. A beat. You threatened it briefly, they say without accusation. Then you stabilized it. That earns a fraction of something like respect. This conversation exists to determine whether that was coincidence or character. Hollis leans back slightly. So now it's my turn to ask, Simon. Not hostile, not dramatic. When you spoke the name Valharan on the road, were you asking for protection? Or were you declaring responsibility? The inn hums softly around you. No one listens. No one interrupts. The question lands cleanly, and how you answer it will decide whether this remains a quiet conversation in a warm room or becomes the moment the road formally stops, pretending it doesn't have a voice.
When I spoke the name, it spoke the name Valharan. It was for safety, for insight, for whatever information he may have that I needed. It was done, what's the word I'm looking for?
Hollis listens without breaking eye contact. Not because they're challenging you, because this answer matters enough to be taken whole. When you finish, they nod once, slow, satisfied in a way that isn't approval so much as confirmation. That's the honest version, they say, and the useful one. They lean back slightly, chair creaking in a way that feels grounding rather than intrusive. Safety, insight, information, Hollis repeats. That tells me you weren't outsourcing responsibility. You were asking for context so you could choose correctly with what you already carry. A pause. That's an important distinction. They glance briefly toward the window. The road is invisible from here, but its presence feels assumed, like gravity. People who invoke names for protection alone tend to freeze when protection doesn't arrive the way they imagined, Hollis continues. People who invoke names for permission tend to abdicate blame when things go wrong. Their eyes return to yours. You asked to understand the terrain before stepping further onto it. That earns something real now, not warmth. Trust's younger sibling. Hollis folds their hands again. Then, here's what I can tell you without crossing lines, they say. The system you brushed up against doesn't answer to gods, kings, or councils. It answers to outcomes. If roads remain passable, trade remains predictable, and violence remains exceptional, it considers itself successful. They let that sit. Valharan's name didn't summon anything. It didn't trigger favor or reprisal. What it did was signal that you recognize forces larger than yourself and still intend to act. A faint, almost amused breath. That narrows the risk profile considerably. They lean forward just a touch now. So, here's where we are, Hollis says. You're not being recruited. You're not being warned off. You're being indexed. That word lands heavier than it sounds. It means that when you pass through places like this again, someone may already know how you tend to behave when pressure is a plaque can open doors. It can also close them before you ever see the handle. They study your face one last time. You came here to avoid surprises, Hollis adds. You succeeded. They push their chair back slightly, signaling that this phase of the conversation is ending. Get some rest, they say. Tomorrow the caravan moves on, and so do you. Nothing else will happen tonight. Then, softer, almost human. And Simon? They wait until you're looking directly at them. If you ever do declare responsibility instead of asking for safety, a beat, the road will answer faster. Hollis stands, nods once more, and blends back into the inn's rhythm like they were never separate from it at all. The fire crackles, a mug clinks somewhere outside, Ash keeps watch, nothing explodes, no secrets are forced, and somehow that feels like the most consequential outcome of all.
Simon will leave the inn and go back to the caravan. He will finish his watch, then take a long rest for the night.
Simon leaves the inn the same way he entered it. No rush, no glance over his shoulder, just a door opening, a step through, and the night reclaiming him. The air outside is cooler now, quieter. The village has settled into that late-hour hush where nothing important is supposed to happen and everything important could. The road lies dark and patient beyond the firelight, pretending to be just stone and dirt again. Ash lifts his head as Simon approaches, tail flicking once in recognition before settling. Whatever passed inside the inn didn't trouble him. That's as good a sign as any. Simon takes his place on watch again. Second watch bleeds into third without incident. No footsteps in the dark, no whispered, no knock that changes its mind at the last moment. The road behaves. When his shift ends, Simon beds down near the edge of camp, where he can still feel the shape of the road even in sleep. Armor loosened. Blades close. Ash curled at his side, warmth steady and real. Sleep comes, not immediately, but cleanly. No dreams sent, no symbols pressed into memory, no voices asking for promises, just rest. Morning will come, and with it, the continuation of the road, the caravan, and whatever quiet consequences were set in motion tonight. Episode 19 settles into silence, not because nothing happened, but because everything that needed to was already written down.
Simon will wake in the morning and have his breakfast with Mara. I need to see if I need to take a long rest. 63, so no.
Morning comes the way it should, gradual, honest, no sharp edges. Simon wakes to the quiet industry of a caravan that knows how to rise without panic, fires coaxed back to life, bread unwrapped, a kettle singing softly like it's done this 1,000 times before and expects to do it 1,000 more. Ash stretches, nose to the air, then relaxes. No alarms filed overnight. Mara's already up when Simon joins her. She's seated near the cook fire, mug in hand, boots dusty, posture loose in that way that says she slept well enough, but not deeply. She looks up as he approaches and gives a nod that carries more meaning than small talk. Morning, she says. Not cheerful, not grim, just accurate. Breakfast is simple. Bread, dried meat, something hot that tastes better than it has any right to. The kind of meal that exists to remind people they're still human before the road starts asking for things again. They eat in companionable silence for a bit. Then Mara speaks, eyes on the fire. Village was quiet last night, she says. Not a question. an observation. Quiet in the way that means people knew what they were doing. She finally looks at Simon then. No prying, no expectation of explanation. You seem settled, she adds. That's not nothing. Ash noses at a scrap and earns it. Mara smirks faintly at that, then sips from her mug. Caravan will be ready to roll inside the hour, she continues. Road looks clean. Too clean, maybe, but I'll take it. A pause. If something's riding with us that doesn't leave tracks, she says, tone casual but eyes sharp, I trust you'll notice before it bites. She doesn't wait for reassurance. She trusts competence, not words. The morning stretches open in front of you. The village is already receding into memory, doing exactly what it was meant to do. The road ahead waits. And for the first time since all of this began, it feels less like it's testing Simon and more like it's curious how he plans to proceed now that introductions are over.
Simon will pack up his gear and get on his horse with Ash and wait for the caravan to depart.
Simon finishes his breakfast, packs his gear with practiced efficiency, and swings up into the saddle as the camp comes apart around him. Bedrolls strapped, coals scattered, wagons creaking back into their long, familiar shapes. Ash hops up easily, settling in like this has always been the plan. Tail flick, nose to the wind, calm. Simon waits. That, more than anything, marks the change. He's not restless, not scanning for the next shoe to drop. He's present, mounted, ready, letting the caravan finish becoming what it needs to be before it moves. The caravan master gives the signal. Drivers call to their teams. Wheels begin to turn. The village exhales as the line of wagons pulls away, already forgetting names, faces, conversations that were never meant to linger. The road takes them back without comment. No watchers on the hills, no messengers in the dust, no signs newly altered overnight. But Simon can feel it now. Faint and steady. The difference between being unknown and being accounted for. The road isn't guiding him today. It isn't listening closely either. It's observing at a comfortable distance. As the caravan settles into its rhythm and the village slips behind them, one thing becomes clear. Nothing is pressing on Simon anymore. That doesn't mean nothing is coming. It means the next thing that comes will do so because it's time, not because it's urgent. Episode 19 moves forward with daylight, open road, and a sense of deliberate calm that only exists after a threshold has been crossed and properly acknowledged. The caravan departs, Simon rides on, and the road, satisfied for now, lets him.
Simon will lead the caravan on guard, waiting for whatever message the road has for him to be given.
Simon rides point again, easy in the saddle, posture relaxed but unmistakably on duty. He's not hunting for trouble, he's making space for it to announce itself properly if it insists on existing at all. The caravan falls into line behind him without needing to be told. That's the thing about guards who look like they belong there. People arrange themselves around them instinctively. Wagons keep their spacing, voices lower. Even the horses seem to settle into a cleaner rhythm. Ash rides quietly, ears flicking at distant sounds, nose testing the wind in short, thoughtful pulls. No alarm, no boredom, just awareness shared between two creatures who know how to wait without wasting energy. The road stretches ahead in long, uninterrupted miles. No forks, no landmarks worth naming, just a steady ribbon of packed earth and stone doing exactly what roads are supposed to do when they're behaving. And then, slowly, you feel it. Not pressure, not danger, attention returning. Not focused yet, not personal. More like the sense that a letter has been written and sealed somewhere ahead, and the only remaining question is where it will be delivered. The signs are subtle. A stretch of road where the wind drops unnaturally still, a line of old marker stones that don't quite match the ones before them, a place where sound carries just a little too cleanly. Ash notices first. His ears angle forward, then settle. Not toward threat, toward expectation. Whatever message the road has isn't coming as an ambush. It isn't coming as a messenger sprinting out of the scrub. It's coming as timing. A place where stopping will feel natural. A moment when slowing down won't feel like hesitation. An interruption that won't read as interruption at all. Simon keeps riding, visible by choice, guarding the caravan and leaving room for the road to finish what it started. The message hasn't arrived yet, but it's close enough now that the road has stopped pretending it doesn't know exactly where Simon is. And this time, when it speaks, it won't ask whether he's listening.
Simon listens for whatever the road has coming for him.
Simon listens, not with his ears alone, with posture, with pace, with the way he lets the horse choose its stride instead of forcing one, with the patience of someone who understands that messages delivered too loudly are usually lies. The road answers the way it prefers to, by coincidence. Ahead, the land dips gently, not enough to be a valley, just enough that sound gathers. The wind dies there, wagon noise softens, hoofbeats lose their echo. It's a natural place to slow without explanation. Ash stiffens just a fraction, no alarm, just awareness sharpening, like a blade being tested with a thumb. That's when Simon notices what's different. Someone is already there, not standing in the road, not blocking it. Off to the side where an old milestone leans at a tired angle, half swallowed by grass. A person seated on it as if they've been waiting for a ride that runs on a schedule only they understand. No horse, no visible weapon, no attempt to hide. They're dressed plainly, travel-worn but clean, and they're watching the caravan approach with the mild interest of someone observing a tide rather than a threat. When their eyes lift and meet Simon's, they don't look surprised. They look relieved. As the caravan draws closer, the person stands, slowly, deliberately. They step just close enough to the road that ignoring them would feel rude rather than safe. They raise one hand, palm out. Not a signal to stop, a signal to acknowledge. Ash lets out a soft, questioning sound, not fear, recognition without memory. The person speaks, voice calm, carrying cleanly in the still air. Simon, they say, like they've practiced it once and got it right the first time. The road asked me to tell you something. No title, no flourish, no demand, just a message, cued patiently until you were ready to hear it. They glance past you at the caravan, then back. It says you've been listening long enough, they continue, and that the next answer doesn't belong to the road anymore. A pause. Long enough to let the weight settle. It belongs to you. They step back, giving the road back its space, eyes never leaving yours. The message is simple, they finish, and inconvenient. Then at last, the road goes completely quiet, waiting to see whether Simon slows, stops, or rides on past, carrying the message with him, whether he likes it or not.
Simon stops and asks, listening long enough, the next answer doesn't belong to the road. Well, if it's my answer, what's the question?
person smiles at that, not wide, not amused, the kind of smile you give when someone finally asks the correct thing. They step off the milestone and onto the packed earth, boots settling like they belong there. The caravan rolls to a natural, unforced slow behind you. No shouted orders, no sudden tension. Even the horses seem willing to wait. That's exactly why it's yours, they say. They gesture, not to the road ahead, but to the space Simon occupies. The horse. Ash. The visible posture of someone who keeps choosing to be present. The question isn't what will you do next, they continue. That's too easy. Everyone does something next. They glance back the way the road came, then forward again. The question is this, they say, voice steady, unadorned. Open quote. Now that you know the road notices, now that you know systems exist that will adjust around you instead of stopping you, will you continue to act as if your choices only belong to you? Close quote. The words hang there, not accusatory, not dramatic. This isn't about obedience, they add, and it isn't about service. No one is asking you to swear anything or wear a symbol. Ash watches them closely now, still calm, curious. It's about scale, the messenger continues. You've crossed from being a traveler who reacts to circumstances into someone whose presence subtly alters them. That doesn't make you important. It makes you relevant. A pause. The road wants to know whether you intend to stay a good guard who listens, or whether you're willing to become someone who occasionally answers back. They step away from the road now, back toward the milestone, reclaiming their role as not the point of this. You don't need to answer out loud, they finish. You'll answer by how you ride from here. The caravan waits. The road waits. And for the first time, there is no further hint, no guiding pressure, no subtle nudge toward a choice, just open ground ahead, and Simon deciding what kind of weight he intends to be when he puts his heels to the horse and rides on.
The road wants to know whether you intend to stay a good guide who listens, or whether you're willing to become someone who occasionally answers back. I'm more than likely to answer back whatever the question is. If something is waiting for me, then I'll run across it when I reach it. I guess that's the only answer I can give.
The messenger listens without interruption, no nodding along, no tightening of the jaw. When you finish, they let the silence sit for a heartbeat longer than comfort requires. Then they smile again. This time it isn't approval or relief, it's recognition. That's an answer, they say. Not a careful one, not a safe one, but a real one. They step back toward the milestone and rest a hand on it, like this place was always meant to be a punctuation mark instead of a destination. Most people want the road to promise something, they continue, an outcome, a warning, a guarantee that if they keep walking, the ground will behave. Their eyes meet yours, steady and unflinching. You didn't ask for that. Ash lets out a quiet breath, almost a sigh, then settles again. The horse beneath you shifts its weight, ready. That means two things, the messenger says. First, the road won't soften what you run into. It won't rearrange events to make sure you land cleanly. A pause. And second, when you do run into something that matters, it won't pretend it was an accident. They step fully off the road now, returning it to you. You're not being escorted anymore, they add. You're being allowed. The caravan creaks softly behind you, drivers waiting without impatience. This is the kind of pause that fits inside a journey instead of interrupting it. The messenger inclines their head once. "That's all," they say. "Ride well, Simon." They don't vanish. They don't linger. They simply walk away at an angle that doesn't lead back to the road, already becoming part of the land's background noise again. The road does not speak. It doesn't need to. Whatever was waiting has heard you. The answer has been given, not in words, but in posture, in momentum, in the simple fact that Simon stays mounted, visible, and willing to meet what comes where it actually lives, instead of demanding it come to him. The caravan waits for your signal, and the road, satisfied for now, opens itself forward without resistance.
Simon will continue to lead the caravan to its next stop, keeping alert for any trouble that shows up.
Simon puts his heels gently to the horse and the caravan moves. No ceremony, no declaration, just motion resumed with intent. The wagons creak forward, drivers falling back into their practiced rhythms like nothing momentous just happened. Guards adjust their spacing. Someone cracks a joke that lands badly and gets forgotten just as fast. Normal life reasserts itself, which is exactly how you know nothing is wrong. Simon rides point, alert without being tight about it. Eyes scanning the road ahead, ears catching the small, honest sounds that tell you more than shouting ever does. Ash stays poised on the saddle, ears swiveling independently, nose testing the air in short, thoughtful pulls. The road behaves. That's the first thing you notice. No sudden silences, no unnatural wind shifts, no sense of being herded or framed. Whatever conversation just ended has ended cleanly. You're no longer being guided, tested, or nudged. You're being allowed to proceed. That doesn't mean you're invisible again. It means the ledger has a margin note instead of an open case. Hours pass, the land opens and closes in gentle cycles. A stream crossing that smells clean, a rise where the road briefly shows its full length like it's reminding you how far it goes. Tracks appear and vanish. Travellers passed earlier, nothing fresh enough to matter yet. Ash stiffens once, briefly, then relaxes. A false signal. Wildlife. Nothing that wants to intersect. By late afternoon, you can tell there's another stop ahead. Not because you see it yet, but because the road starts doing that subtle thing it does when it expects people to pause. Firmer ground, old ruts that suggest repeated halts. The land remembers caravans stopping here. Whatever trouble might show up isn't urgent. Not now, not today. If it comes, it'll come because it belongs on this stretch of road, not because it was chasing you. Simon leads on, visible, steady, prepared. The caravan follows, and somewhere ahead, the next stop waits, unaware that when Simon arrives, he won't be looking for answers anymore. He'll be watching to see which questions decide to step into the open.
Simon will continue to lead the caravan to its next stop.
Simon keeps the lead and the caravan follows like it trusts the shape of the day. The road stretches on without tricks. No sudden forks, no forced decisions, just long, honest miles that let people fall into thought if they're inclined to it. Wheels roll, harness leather sighs, hooves strike a rhythm that feels older than any of the names attached to it. Ash stays calm but attentive, ears ticking through the catalogue of normal sounds. Birds, insects, distant water. Nothing sharp enough to demand action yet. As the sun drifts lower, the land begins to telegraph stopping again, not with signs, but with habit. Firmer ground off to one side. A line of stones that once held a fire ring and might again. A shallow bend in the road that naturally slows traffic without forcing it. This stop isn't a village. No buildings. No inn light waiting to be noticed. Just a place the road has hosted people before and remembers how. Simon signals the slowdown when it feels right. Not early, not late. The caravan eases into it naturally, like everyone expected, this exact patch of ground, even if no one said so out loud. Nothing follows them in, nothing breaks cover, nothing insists on being noticed, and that's the quiet confirmation. Whatever the road had to say has been said. Whatever was listening has stepped back far enough to let consequences arrive on their own schedule. The caravan settles in for the night ahead of schedule, daylight still lingering enough to feel generous. Fires go up, watches are discussed, supper smells like effort rewarded. Simon remains visible, not on edge, not relaxed enough to be careless, just present, exactly where a guard who understands the road should be. The next stop is reached, not because the road demanded it, because it was time. And for now, that's enough.
Let's use this as a stopping point for episode 19. We'll pick up with Simon being on watch after dinner.
Got it. Episode 19 closes here. The caravan has reached its stopping place. Fires are lit. Supper is eaten. The road lies quiet, satisfied enough to let the night take over without commentary. Nothing presses. Nothing retreats. Nothing feels unfinished. Simon remains what he has chosen to be this entire stretch of the journey, visible, alert, and unhurried. Whatever answers back next will do so on its own terms, not because it was chased or provoked. We'll pick up next session with Simon on watch after dinner, the camp settling into night, the road dark and patient, and whatever questions still linger, deciding whether they're ready to step into the open. Episode 19 ends not with a cliffhanger, but with the sense that the world has finally stopped interrupting long enough to see what Simon does when left to his own momentum. Whenever you're ready, we'll start there.
All right, so that's going to do it for today. If you made it this far, congratulations. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. That way you can keep up whenever we do play. Um, Hope everyone has a good 2026 and Happy New Year. I'll see you all later. Bye.